Jazzcast Pros.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Getting Real with Bossy, the podcast that shows you what it's really like to be a woman business owner. I'm Kelly Bush, and I'm here today to introduce Season 2, Episode 2, where I have the pleasure of interviewing Kelly Metras. I've known Kelly for over 15 years, and she is one of the kindest, most compassionate and driven women I've ever met. She's loyal and generous, and I'm so grateful that I get to call her my friend, my partner, my bossy. Get ready, it's a roller coaster.
Live it, love it, lime it with Salena's Mexican restaurant at the Village Gate. Come for the food, stay for the fun. Become a part of Salena's family. Salena's offers daily specials, happy hour at the bar, and catering, plus dietary menus for celiac, vegan, and vegetarian guests. When you're on the west side, grab a quick bite at the new Salena's Taqueria Grease, 745 Maiden Lane in the Tops Plaza. Find out more at salenas.com, SALENAS.com.
Hey ladies, do you own your own business or are you considering starting your own?
Are you craving connection and are ready to feel seen? It's time to get real about what it takes to make it as a woman business owner.
My name is Kelly Bush.
And I'm Kelly Metras.
And we're the hosts of Getting Real with Bossy, the podcast that unites and educates women business owners through real, raw, and honest conversations. All right, so introduce yourself.
I am Kelly Metras. Yeah. I own Salena's Mexican restaurant and Salena's Taqueria and BOSSY with my favorite coworker, business partner.
Surprise, it's me.
I called myself your work wife for the first time today, and I loved it.
It was wonderful. Because, I mean, really, we've been work wives for 15 years.
Yeah.
Or I don't know how long ago. At least we're at Hillside together.
Right?
So, yeah. 10 years, 12 years, 13, whatever.
How have I never said that before?
I don't know.
But anyways.
Yeah. We should get t-shirts. I have a cricket. I can make us t-shirts.
You have a cricket.
I have a cricket.
I love it. That'll be our quote on our Bossy shirts when we do the quotes.
Work wives.
We'll be work wives.
I love it.
Last night.
Yeah, so good. So
we
good.
had Pop Rock and Angelina, who if you've been following us, Angelina's story is on our channel.
She was Wonder Woman.
She was Wonder Woman. She hosted a Galentine's Day event. Jordan kind of set the whole thing up from Neat Salon, who also we've already had a podcast with. So
yes.
you can follow her story. It was super cute.
So fun.
And we did speed dating for business.
Speed dating for business. And what was great about it was there were so many new people. So not only were you connecting with people maybe you've seen, you know, over the last couple of years, but some brand new people, brand new businesses, which is so great to be around that energy. I was like, oh, right. This is cool. It is cool to do this. I want to start businesses again.
Well, I was just talking to a Bossy member a couple weeks ago that's a long-term business, and I was saying about how refreshing it is to talk with new business owners because I have a lot of history that I can share, and you'll probably learn about some of that today, but they have a perspective that's completely different because I've been running the business for so long that I love hearing fresh ideas and fresh perspectives and like how to reach people and
right.
Yeah, so I just find it invigorating because then I like leave with ideas.
And that people are still willing to do this after everything that we've been through in the last couple of years. So I met with somebody yesterday through my consulting business that's wanting to open a restaurant. And I was like, you still want to do that? He's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. It's like, okay, I don't know.
Maybe I'll share all my shit and then you can just play this episode. And
right.
you're like, you still want to do this?
Well, but I was thinking, I'm like, you're building everything in. Like, you can adjust to all the shit that we've had to adjust to the last couple years. So all of that stuff is built in, you know, build it into your business plan. And what a great perspective to be able to open a restaurant knowing things just cost this much. And this is my model. And we're not going to have server the things you could do to save money. And
that's my plan.
I know. You're such a forward thinker because you thought of all of that before.
I didn't think of all of it, but
a lot of it.
A lot of what we're doing and what we plan on doing in 2020 was a direct response to everything we had learned in, at that point, maybe 8 or 9 years of business and the things we struggled with. And it was like, when you're in a place that's running a certain way, there are things you can't adjust, you know, and you're like, okay, well, these are our top 5 issues. How do we fix that?
Right.
And that's kind of like where the whole idea came from. And we looked into franchising and we're like, this is not what we want to do, at least with the sit-down restaurant. And then that kind of like led into that conversation of what would it look like if we could fix everything.
Right.
And that's where we got the idea for the taquerias, and we'll see if it works. Ideally, the third one is when it works.
Yep.
So we just have to get there still.
All right, so we're jumping ahead.
So,
No, which is great. That's some foreshadowing and all the amazing things you get to learn about in this next 7 hours when Kelly and I do this, because we could literally talk for that long. All right, so Salena's.
Where do you want to start?
So 5-year-old Kelly wanted to own a Mexican restaurant.
5-year-old Kelly, well, I don't know when it started. I wanted to be a marine biologist.
Of course.
And a teacher.
So great.
One
of those came true.
Right. And the marine biologist, though, like, I was obsessed with the ocean from a very young age and ocean creatures. I wouldn't eat seafood. I was, I used to call myself a backward vegetarian. Mm-hmm. I ate meat, but I didn't eat seafood because I didn't want to touch anything that lived in the water, because I felt like it was the future for, like, humanity. It was like everything could be saved in the ocean if we just learned more about it and, like, stop killing it.
Right.
So I was like Greta before Greta was born.
Yeah.
Right? And then I got to be a teenager and other things got in the way of my dreams and goals of marine biology. And
it's a lot of science and a lot of school.
I didn't mind that. I was really good at school.
That's good.
Yeah. Like, it was so easy. Like, I actually tried to fail a class in high school. Mr. Lewis, if you're listening, I tried to fail your earth science, your AP earth science, or not AP, advanced earth science, and I got a C, and I was so pissed. Because you were literally, like, I was so bored in school. Like, so bored that I was like, I'm going to fail this class.
Goodness.
And I couldn't even do it.
Sorry, Mr. Lewis.
I know. And it's I'm that annoying. I was the annoying kid that was like, okay, you told me that twice. I now know. And what am I going to do all week?
Right.
While you teach everyone else. And I had teachers that had, like, special places for me to go, and I could just do whatever I wanted as long as I left everybody alone, because I'd get bored and I'd be like, so what are you doing?
Right.
What's going on this weekend? Yeah.
So is that when you decided you wanted to be a teacher?
Well, I'd always wanted to be a teacher. I babysat from the age of 11. I made a fortune. Mm-hmm. All of my neighborhood friends moved out around 10, 11, and all new families moved in, and they all had babies. So I had nothing to do, because it was the 80s. You went outside and just played, but now everyone was gone. Like, everyone moved out of my neighborhood. And then I just started babysitting. So I would, at 11, I would go over with, like, infants just to sit while the mom did stuff when she like wasn't being comfortable, like, leaving the room, right? So she could, like, shower and wash dishes and do whatever. And then as the kids got older, I babysat the whole neighborhood.
Right.
My nephews were born at that time, so I was their babysitter. They paid me way too much money.
Of course.
And I had, like, free reign of their house. So yeah, I made a fortune. And then I started working for real, and that sucked.
Yeah. Yeah. Babysitting was the jam.
No taxes, like...
And I was the same way. Like, I remember going over, like, I'd get off the bus and, like 4th grade and go over to my neighbor's while she, like, took her kids to dance, and I was, like, just watching the youngest one. I'm like, this is normal, but, I was home. My family was... Neighborhoods don't exist like they used to, and I could have just called my next-door neighbor, because everybody knew each other, and they would have come over if there was a tragedy or a question. Yeah. I don't know why I jumped to tragedy. But,
like, my mom would yell for us to come home, and if we didn't come home right away, my neighbor would yell.
Right.
For us to come, and, like, a lot of times she was a singer and she had a much stronger voice, and a lot of times we came home because Mrs. Mulligan called. Mm-hmm. And when I say called, I mean, go home for dinner, and you'd be like, oh, that's my alarm.
Yeah.
3 blocks away. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then the same thing with teaching. I was always like, a saviorist. I was, I saw a lot of discrimination and racism and all kinds of awful shit in school where I grew up, and I saw kids struggle, like, unnecessarily, and, like, I was such a good student, so I would try to help my friends that were struggling, and then, because of their background or their siblings or history, the teacher would be, like, extra hard on me. So I just saw these things, and I was like, I want to be a good teacher. I'm going to save kids. I'm going to do all the things, right? And, now it's called white saviorism, but when I was growing up in a primarily white neighborhood, like, you didn't know any different, right?
Right.
You learn. You only know what you know until you don't know it, or until you learn something new. Mm-hmm. So that's what I went into college, I floated. I knew I wanted to be, and I was like, I don't want to be a teacher now. Like, I want to get high and drunk a lot. Sorry, Mom. And like hang out with my friends, and you know what I mean? So it was like, I just need to get out and graduate, stop spending money. I spent a lot of money on other things. I traveled a lot, had a great time in my 20s. But it was very expensive. And then I went back for my master's when I finally was like, I want to be in the restaurant industry forever. Spoiler alert. So I went back and got a very expensive master's degree so I could do it quickly and get my education certification all at the same time. So it was like this program that was like a year, and it was like super jump in, get everything, throw a bunch of money at you. So I did that, and that's how I started. I went to my interview for Hillside only as practice.
Oh, yeah?
I applied at a ton of places, and they called me for the interview, and I was like, never going to take this job. I'm going to go to the interview because I've never been interviewed for like a real job, right? Because that's what you call things that are restaurants. And I went in for the interview, and it was, I can't believe I took the job. During my interview, they had me sit in the classroom, and a child jumped out the window and ran.
Yeah, I probably caught him.
Probably. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, this is, and no one acted like it was like unheard of or like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that with this new person in there.
Yeah.
It was just, and almost I wonder now if they did it on purpose. Like, put her in that room because you know this kid's going to be a hard time, and then see if she really wants to work here.
Yeah, that was our method.
Yeah. And I was like, well, maybe I could do this. And then they gave me, they paid me less than I would have gotten paid at public schools, and it was an amazing experience. And I don't regret it because, like we always say, I use more of that training in my day-to-day life at work or at home than I do most of the training I got in my life.
Right.
So, yeah, so I don't know how that ties into me being a restaurant owner, but...
Well, I think that during the time that you were getting your very expensive master's, where were you working?
I actually started at Salena. So I had worked at Salena's on and off. So I started in, I believe, 99.
Wow.
I remember I was dating somebody and I was traveling, and I remember that there was shifts. So I was 21 and I would work 3 shifts in one day, and I would work at Salena's, I would work at this barbecue place at festivals, and then I would work at the bar. I would be like, I'd go to his house after and be like, I must smell so bad.
Right.
Like, so it was like 1999, and then I quit multiple times. I literally found my replacements. Like, I only worked there to help because I knew the family. And I'd be like, oh, I'll bus tables for you. So I would literally like bartend and make like $400 in a night, and then wake up and run a couple hours later to bus tables for like $6 an hour.
Right.
And I would be like, I don't really want this job.
No.
Like, I thought I was just helping out. So I did that. I bartended the same way. And every time I like found somebody to take my job after like 8-9 months, I'd be like, so I have this friend that really needs a job, and I don't really need this job. So I did that multiple times. And then when I went back to school, I needed a lunch job that I knew I could make money at, because school was set up for people that had day jobs.
Right.
So it was nights and weekends. And I was like, well, Salena's has a really solid lunch business. I know I could be okay if I went there. And it timed out perfect. And my soon-to-be business partner, James, was the lunchtime cook or server.
Okay.
And was moving to nights because he was going back to school or something. So he moved to nights, and they needed somebody for lunches. So it all worked out like perfect. I ended up taking the lunch shift, and I've never left.
You really haven't left.
I haven't left since then. So all the times I quit before that, I haven't. It's a lie. Foreshadowing. I quit once. That's when Aaron was my boss.
Right.
So, yeah. So I went to Hillside.
If you've been thinking about starting a podcast and you want to include interviews with people across town, Riverside.fm offers unbelievable high-quality recordings regardless of your or your guest internet quality. And it also gives you separate audio and video tracks for each person speaking. And unlike Zoom, you don't have to install anything on your computer, and your guests don't either. Head over to Riverside.fm and use promo code JazzyCast to get 60 free minutes of recording and 15% off a membership plan.
Ended up pregnant, was on maternity leave. I had childcare set up 4 days of the week with family, And then the 5th day, I was like, I can't send her to daycare just to be miserable when I come home. Like, I was so scared to go back to work because it was so exhausting and so all-encompassing. And I feel like in those kinds of positions, you either stop caring to survive.
Yep.
Or you carry all that shit with you because you learn these stories and you're working with these kids and you love them so much, even if they want to kill you. And you can't just leave that at the door, right? So I would come home and I drank a lot and thinking of different ways I could help these kids and, you know, different alternative resources. You know what I mean? You're just constantly like, what does this kid need and how can I help them? And I'm going to come up with this idea. We're going to try this. And you just never let it go. And I was like, how do I go home to a baby with all that already on my shoulders? And Aaron one day was like, you don't have to go back. And I was like, you don't? Okay.
Right.
You know, and that was kind of how that happened, is we were like, well, we'll figure it out. And I wanted to open up a place that would prepare meals for families that were like, almost like take and bakes. Like, you have it all prepared and they just throw it in the oven.
Right.
Wegmans does that now. But that kind of idea of having like fresh made food that was convenient, because I learned that that was like something that people needed because I needed it.
Right.
So that was kind of our like long-term idea. Aaron wanted to open up a independent group home for developmentally disabled adults because he'd been in the service field forever and saw all the problems there and wanted to save everybody.
Right.
So he, when I had the first baby, he went to real work because he wanted to support us. Got a job working for low-income, elderly, disabled folks downtown, and quickly realized that he did not want to open his own group home anymore because he was like, I just can't deal with the red tape.
That's the worst part of it.
And that was the worst part of where we worked, is you can only do so much.
Right.
You know, and you have to stop. It was like a hard stop, right?
It's so funny because I was talking about this with somebody the other day. Like, it's such a basic equation. It's such a basic formula. Behavior meets needs.
Yeah.
You know, meet the need, behavior goes away.
Right.
But to be able to meet those needs the way we need to, it's
The red tape
the red
stops
tape
you.
gets in the way and makes it impossible.
Yeah. So instead of meeting the need, you're just asking them to change the behavior.
Right.
But the need's always going to be there. Yeah. No, super frustrating.
Yeah.
So he got offered randomly the GM position at the restaurant. And he took that as an out from group home management. And we decided that if we were going to open up a take and bake or whatever it was, the only job we hadn't done was the management. So I was like, well, go take the job for a little while and we'll learn all there is to learn about that stuff, because that's the last job.
Right.
Not taking into account that like ownership is its own job.
So many jobs.
So naive. So he took that and he became my boss. And that's the only time I quit after I went back to grad school. So I looked at him one day and I was like, I can't. Oh, I'm jumping. So the owner randomly offered us to buy the place, and we thought he was drunk. His kids worked there. It was very awkward. So Aaron came home from work and he was like, oh, I saw him tonight, and he asked us if we wanted to buy the place. And we were like, he's so drunk. And that was the conversation. Nothing more. And then some time went by and he came home from work one night and was like, oh, I saw him tonight and he asked if we had the money. And I was like, what? So that was the first time we talked about it. Because we were like, oh shit.
Like he's serious.
Right.
He thinks you're serious too.
Yeah. So we were like, oh my God, like, how does this work? So that became like an actual conversation. And then we decided to move forward. And that's when I quit, because I was like, I can't be your business partner and your employee at the same time.
Right.
Because your expectations are different for me. And I just can't do it. So when I was like, I quit. And he's like, but you're supposed to work lunch tomorrow. And I was like, that's your problem.
Yeah, manager.
Yeah. I was like, I don't fucking care what you do tomorrow. And I was like, because I'm out until my name's on the paper.
Right.
And no one was allowed to know we were buying it, which was like a whole nother level of like stress at work. So
it's
like
hard.
I had worked there for 12 years. Like, I knew everybody so well. I mean, they were like family. Some of them were my family.
Right.
And I wasn't allowed to talk about it because he didn't want his kids to know. And I was like,
uncomfortable.
also wanted us to tell his kids.
Of course.
And he was like, so I really think, and we were like, no, like, that is not how this works. You know, and I had known them for 12. So it was like a hot mess. So yeah, so that was the time I quit. So that's how I bought Salena's for a lot of money, overspent, but we felt confident in what we were doing because he worked in the management side. He saw how much money was not on the books at the time. and saw what the actual cash flow was, not just the QuickBooks version.
Right.
And we could do the math legitimately knowing what the restaurant was bringing in, not what taxes said the restaurant was bringing in, which also made it very difficult to get a loan.
I'm sure.
For what he asked and what we were able to show that the restaurant was making, because we had his books at the time.
Yeah.
Which is why we've chosen to do everything as up as possible, because I'm like, if we want to walk away, like,
right.
How do you walk away if I can't prove what it's worth?
Right. Yeah, and you can't really get away with that stuff today like you could then.
Right, everything's on credit cards now. I mean, everything was cash back then.
Yeah.
Really, until COVID, like, COVID was a hard switch. It just went straight credit. Like, I go to the bank now to get money to pay tips out. Whereas before, I was going to the bank every week to deposit money because I didn't want that much money on site.
There were so many times where I would have to go into the bank, which is, I hate doing Don's job, but if he couldn't do it, I'd be like, but I can't get it in the tube. There's just too much cash.
Yeah,
I can't get it in the tube. I have to go in and park, and I don't want to do that. And now it's like,
you walk in with your purse, like...
Yeah.
And then they're like, I gotta, like, count it and fill it, and I'm like, don't be looking at me.
Right.
When you don't know how much money's in my purse.
Exactly.
Like,
But it's not like that anymore.
Now it's me leaving with change.
Yep. So I can pay out tips. Yep.
That I'm like, don't look at me. You can't see all the ones and fives in my purse. It's not 20s.
Exactly.
You can rob me, but you're only getting a couple $100.
It's not what you think, I swear.
Yeah.
You should have seen me 6 years ago.
I know.
So different.
It's so different and so much more expensive because of that, which people don't realize.
Yeah. So that was Salena's. Do you want to talk about your next business idea?
So I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. I bought Salena's for $1 million. It sounds fake when I say it out loud.
It's Monopoly money.
I used to joke that I was a millionaire in debt. Almost like a millionaire. $1 million in debt.
Right.
And once you sign paper, so obviously, like, it wasn't a bank loan because nobody would loan us the money. So the owner had a set number of dollars he wanted in cash to, like, pay off his debts or whatever, which was still probably, like, what the restaurant was really worth.
Right.
So we jumped through 1,000 hoops to get that together. We're super fortunate that we were able to take loans from family members and had that opportunity. But the rest of it was all in goodwill. So we paid him $12,000 a month for 7 years. So, yeah. So we just didn't pay ourselves much and moved on. And then we came up with the idea. The location next door was a jazz lounge that didn't end up being a jazz lounge. It ended up costing us $40,000 in lost sales because there were shootings and police were there all the time, and it got pretty bad. So they left in the middle of the night. And at that point, we had still talked about opening up our own place and this take and bake and, like, what we would want it to look like. And it could be this bar, it'd be super cozy, and it'd be like a coffee shop, but a bar, and you could just hang out with your friends, and I don't have to go to, because, like, at this point I have kids, and I'm like, every time you go to dinner, there's like a 2-hour limit on your catch-up time. And then you're, like, booted from the table. And I was like, you know, it'd be everything you want to, like, go hang out. So they left in the middle of the night, and we were like, oh shit, we should try to grab that lease. And it wasn't when we wanted to. So this was like a plan. We had been like, oh, when they leave at the end of their lease, we should be ready to try to take the space. So
that's never how that works out, honestly.
So we were like, shit, they just left in the middle of the night. So we're like, let's take it. And my landlord at the time, for as much as he was a giant pain in my ass, was amazing in a lot of ways that I definitely appreciate more now. We had a lot of issues building-wise, so we fought a lot on that stuff, which made it a little bit less amicable at the time. But so he worked with us and was like, okay. So we opened up Knox. We took on a couple of business partners. We took on our best friend, who was our bar manager at the time at Salena's. And because we were husband and wife, allowed him to bring on his wife. And then...
Talk about that as much as you want to.
They were going to be like the day-to-day people, and we were going to run all the random shit that we learned goes into business ownership, right? And we had this great deal worked out.
Because they weren't business owners at that time.
No.
So you had that knowledge.
And he wanted, like, it was everything he wanted. He wanted, you know, his own space and to be creative and to be able to hang out with people and, like, everything that he had ever talked about wanting. So we were like, this is kind of a perfect marriage, to say. So we opened up in 2014. We started in 2013, because it takes a while. Opened up in 2014, the end of 2014.
Yeah, because it was New Year's Eve.
was New Year's Eve because the flood happened in 2014. So in the middle of building out the space, we had a fire on the 3rd floor, and that was awful. So now I'm like all over the place. So we got a phone call from James, the guy that we were partnering with, was closing the bar, and we had both left for the night. It was a Friday or Saturday night because we were both there. And at the time, like, we would alternate shifts, but Friday and Saturday, a lot of times we both had to be there because we didn't have a management team yet. And we got home, and my parents were living with us randomly because they were moving and needed a place to crash while they were waiting on a new place. And it was all very weird. And so I got the phone call, and he was like, the fire alarm's going off. It's on the other side of the building on the 3rd floor, like, the flames are coming out the window, but, like, there's a fire extinguisher, you know, like,
right.
He's like, so, like, I'm not super worried, but you might want to come down. Aaron's like, I'll go in. I was like, sweet, because I'm so tired. I was like, I didn't even, like, think anything of it.
Right.
Was, like, almost asleep and got the phone call, and he's like, you need to get the fuck down here now. And I was like, okay, that's not good.
Yeah.
And he just, like, hung up. So I know nothing. So I woke my parents up. Thankfully, they were there.
Right.
My kids were little at the time. So I was like, I got to go. I was like, I don't know why. Like, I pulled in, and if you've ever seen the scene from Snatch where Brad Pitt comes out of the fiery trailer, it's the only time I ever thought Brad Pitt was sexy, which is weird. Probably, like, I'll talk to my therapist about it. I never thought he was attractive, but in that scene in Snatch, I was like, oh, he's hot. Right? It's like in his underwear, I think. So I pull up, and my husband is coming out. He's got, like, a Ninja Turtle shirt. Like, he was literally, like, going back. He has, like, a Ninja Turtle shirt on, right?
Right.
And he is soaked to the bone. And he's carrying, at the time, all of my QuickBooks was on a laptop that we kept in the office.
Oh, God.
So he's got that, and he's got the black box to our POS, and, like, maybe something else. And he's just, like... And all I could think of was, fuck, he's sexy. I was like, this is not good. So we weren't allowed in. He, at that point in time, had explained to the fire department that he needed to get in because all of our pilots were still on.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, what? And he's like, we were open.
Right.
You know, and even when we're not open, the pilots don't go off. Like, we have to get in there and turn everything off. And they were like, oh. So they had let him go in to show them where everything was, and he grabbed that stuff and left. So, like, he was only in and out, like, couldn't really see much. And plus, at that point in time, it was raining in the building. So the water suppression, or for the fire suppression, the water main was over a restaurant, and it's a 100-year-old building. So when they went to put the fire out on the other side on the 3rd floor, which should have not affected us at all, the water main broke. And all of that water dumped into my restaurant. And then they repressurized it. And they set it off again. So it dumped the entire water main back into the restaurant again. Needless to say, it wasn't in good shape. We went in the next day, and I'll never forget, like, ceiling tiles were falling on us. Like, it was just, when we pulled in the morning, it was just raining on the inside of the windows. And I'm only, 2 years into my $1 million debt? Right? So I'm like, I can't be closed. I have a $12,000 loan payment at the end of the month, right? Like, not only the rest of the shit, but, like, shit!
Yeah.
And it's just raining on the inside of the windows. So we go in. There's not much we can do. So we decided that we would take all of the top shelf, really expensive tequila and hide it. And that way, if the ceiling fell in, we could say it got ruined, and at least we got to drink the tequila.
Sure. That's genius.
Right? Because, like, you control what you can when you're in crisis, right? So we were literally, like, ducking ceiling tiles falling on us, and it was still, like, dripping water and, like, grabbing. And we had this little party room off the bar, and we were, like, filling garbage cans with, like, whatever we could, and, like, sending it, like, a chain of people. There was, like, 4 of us, like, just getting it out of the building and, like, into our cars. And that was all we could do that day.
Right.
Right? And we were like, we're done. This is it. I'm bankrupt. And so it was like the next day or the day after, we met with the insurance company, and we met with some brokers we were working with to work the insurance company. And we met with ServPro, who I hate. And they were like, oh, you're going to be closed for at least 6 months.
Oh, God.
At least 6 months.
Yeah.
Right? And I look at, there's a local place that burnt recently, and I'm like, yeah. And I was like, well, that's not possible.
Right.
And I'm a woman, and you'll hear me talk a lot about how I don't think people value my opinion, especially when I'm sitting next to my husband in a circle of men. It was all men at the table. And I'll never forget, we were sitting at one of the back booths, because that didn't get destroyed the further back you were in the restaurant. And I looked at the guy, and I was like, so they're all talking. All these things need to happen, blah, 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 and I don't say much. At the end, I looked at him, and I was like, all right, so if you come in tomorrow, and all my walls and ceiling are gone, then what? That's not going to happen, sweetie. Okay, but just appease me.
Right. Just for fun.
That's when you give like the, hey, so just for fun, like, if all my walls and ceiling were gone tomorrow, then what would happen? Well, in that case, you'd have to skip blah. The next day, all of my walls and ceiling were gone. We were there all day and night. People came through the woodwork, put up a Facebook post, and like strangers showed up that just loved the restaurant. Family members of people that knew us that we'd never met before were like, oh, I have a Sawzall, what can I do? Like, insurance probably shouldn't know about it, but
I don't think they're paying. I don't think they're watching.
It's things like that make me love what I do, because so many people showed up out of love for us and what we do. And some of them I'd never met before. And they literally spent hours helping me fix my restaurant.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So that was insane. We were there all day and night, 6 in the morning till 8 at night. And we would go home and put the kids to bed. My parents were phenomenal. They did all the laundry. They cleaned the house. They made us dinner every day. Like,
wow.
21 days straight. They took care of the kids morning and night. Didn't have to worry about anything. Just got up at 6 a.m., tore apart a restaurant, learned how to use power tools, came home at 8, went to bed, start over the next day. 21 days later, we reopened.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that was the low point and the high point. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, you also have to understand we had installed our own plumbing. So the year before, we kept filling with shit water every time it rained hard. Mm-hmm. I skipped that part.
Yeah.
And the landlord blamed it on the city, and the city blamed it on the landlord, and we couldn't get anyone to prove it either way. All we knew was it wasn't going to stop.
Right.
So we spent $50,000. We took out a loan because we had to stay open. Mm-hmm. And we installed plumbing, fixed the entire building's problem, because we're in a sunken building. We were right by the one main tunnel. And so it created a dam, and every time it rained hard, it would blow the dam, and so water just goes to the first place it can. Right. Which was up our pipes and into our restaurant. So after we had one that was literally like it covered my shoes of shit water. Mm-hmm. And you'd be amazed how many people will continue eating lunch. It always happened during lunch.
Of course.
And I'm like, I can't keep shutting down for shit water. Like, people are going to stop coming.
Right.
Like, we have to fix this problem, right? So we had already done that. So we had already had that loan out on top of buying the business loan. And then the flood happened in 2014. And we had started building Knox, and then Knox got hit by the water used to put out the fire, dripped down the 3 floors. So we had to replace all of the electric and ceilings in Knox. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, we hadn't gotten that far in. Continued to rebuild Knox and opened that at the end of 2014.
Wow.
So that's that story.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So I'm tired now.
Yeah.
Just brought back a lot of memories. I can
know.
still see people and.
Well, and I had just moved to right around the corner, and I remember I don't know that I knew how extreme things were, and I was like, I'm just gonna walk the dog down, and I'll see what I can do to help. And I remember being like, I don't know how to help you guys. Just go. You're not equipped for this right now. Just go. Because I was having my own issues. So I was like, I'll just be watching from up on the hill.
I forgot that before the flood, we had to replace all the flooring on the deck because the original builders didn't use brackets. So we were like, oh, there's some saggy spots. We should have these checked out. And all the 2x8s were just nailed. So, like, if you have them going this way and then have them going this way, they're supposed to be like a bracket, right? No, they were just nailed.
That's not how that works.
And all the equipment and at the time it was a concrete bar, and all the weight of the customers like at the bar was gonna fall. Mm-hmm. So we also, before the flood, did that, which actually worked out great because it was done so well that it was the only thing we didn't have to replace during the flood. But yeah, we also had to rebuild the floor that same year. Oh, it's so expensive.
Right, but invaluable lessons that you learned.
Are they?
I mean...
At what point should I walk away? Because we're not even into it yet.
I know.
This is the very beginning of my business ownership story.
I know. But knowing there's a time to push back and that things are possible and companies will give you absurd timelines and you know that information is... Yeah.
I was like, you're fucking crazy to think I'm going to be closed for 6 months with all this stuff.
But there are many people that would, or just, well, I guess I'm done, and that's it.
And we were fortunate that it wasn't fire damage. Right. So ours was covered by insurance to a point because it was fire damage, but none of the damage was from, like, people were like, oh, I still smell the smoke. And I'm like...
Oh, there was no smoke.
There was no smoke. It was just water. Right. But because it was part of a fire getting put out, if it was just water, like the flood that was coming up from the ground wasn't covered, because that is a sewage issue and not covered by your insurance at all unless you have like special sewage coverage, which who would pay for that?
Right.
It's like having hurricane coverage in Rochester, like. Oh. But anyways.
Yeah.
Oh, and then your insurance skyrockets. So after the flood, we had a $20,000 a year insurance policy that we couldn't make a single claim on for 5 years or no one would carry us.
Right.
So we now had to make it 5 years without having, after the history we had.
Yeah.
Up at that point, being like, oh, we're going to make it 5 years without an issue. So yeah, anything that happened in the next 5 years, we just had to figure out.
Right.
Because if you don't have insurance, you don't have a business. $20,000 a year. Because if anyone wants to know, this happened because of a douchebag who lived upstairs and I have a picture somewhere, had like 87 things plugged into extension cords, including a Christmas tree in August.
Yeah.
And so when the extension cord blew, the Christmas tree went whoosh. And then he would talk shit about us.
Yeah.
As he like walked by, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Are you literally giving me shit right now? Like, my entire life just got blown up for the next 5 years.
Right.
Because you're an asshole. And had to keep your Christmas... And like, why do you even need that? There's other plugs.
Right.
So fire safety is real.
Don't look at my Christmas trees.
Well, it's not bad. It's the 87. Like, they literally was like plugs into extension cords, and then those little like plugs that become more plugs, like in extension cords.
Yeah, that's
the maintenance guy at the time took a picture for us, which I think was worse. Just knowing.
Yeah,
that's like, why my entire
completely
life
preventable
was up in flames.
Hey, if you're enjoying this episode, check out the Healthy Illness Podcast with me, Kelly Marie, as we build healthy relationships while living with mental health conditions. I'm diagnosed and live with borderline personality disorder, major depression, and generalized anxiety. And despite those diagnoses, I've been able to live a full life. I have healthy relationships, a great career, and my mission is to help you do the same. So join me for Healthy Illness Podcast. New episodes every Monday on the Jazzcast Pros Network, found on the podcast player you're listening to right now. Be the light.
The Union Tavern is a beautifully restored building with a rich history and views of Lake Ontario. Featuring New England favorites and hearty comfort food, everyone will have a favorite dish. From large groups to intimate dinners, there's plenty of space to celebrate special occasions. Come visit us at 4565 Culver Road, right across from the Jackrabbit. All right, we are recording. Can you please tell me your name?
Harper.
Harper what?
Metras.
And who's your mom?
Kelly Metras.
Kelly Metras. Wonderful. Do you know what she does for work? Do you
Boss
know
people around?
Yes. High five. That's a wonderful answer. Where does she work? What's the name? Starts with an S? Yeah. And when she goes into Salena's to go to work, what does she do there?
Boss people around?
Yeah, that's pretty much all she does, right? Yeah, do you think she's good at that?
Yes.
Yeah. So knowing what mom does at work, do you think that you would ever want to do her job?
No.
No. That's a really big no. Do you know what you want to do when you grow up?
Design stuff and do makeup.
Design stuff and do makeup, like design clothes?
Like design, like what a room is going to look like.
You do that sometimes, don't you?
Yeah.
I've seen you drawing stuff like that before. Well, maybe you can do something like that for us someday. And then you can start your own business. And then you can join BOSSY. What do you think?
No, you don't want to hang out with me and Mom when we're old?
I have a feeling bossy won't be a thing when you're
Oh,
old.
I think it will. It's going to be a thing forever. And then you can take over when you're the boss.
No.
Do you think you ever want to have employees? People working for you?
Yes.
Do you think you'd be a good boss? You'd be fair and kind?
No.
No? I've seen the way you are with your sister, so I might agree with that a little bit. You might find that things are a little bit different when you're older. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Okay.
So then I opened Knox.
So then you opened Knox. I don't know how much more I want to go on.
I know. We're already at 40 minutes. Quick version. Once you take out $1 million loan, taking out a $50,000 loan is like nothing.
It's a cake.
You're like, oh, I can pay that off.
Yeah.
So we put Knox essentially on our home equity, and we built it all ourselves to save a ton of money. I hand ground the floors, the entire place.
Stenciled
My back hurts. My walls were all stenciled. They're gorgeous. I love them. I hope whoever takes the space keeps it. And we moved forward. Decided, so now we had taken the space next door and split it into two because we wanted Knox to be cozy. And the landlord was like, I don't care what you do with the second place, but I want it to be some kind of food service, because at the time he wanted the whole courtyard to be food service. We're like, cool. So I'm driving home in a blizzard one night from work, and I called my husband, and I was like, I have a crazy idea, and I don't think I should tell you it. And he was like, what? I was like, because you're going to judge me, and you're going to tell me no, and then I'm going to judge you, and it's going to be a big thing, and maybe I'm not ready. And he was like, no, Tom. I was like, maybe I'll tell you when I get home. So I got home, and I was like, I think we should open up a restaurant with high school students and show them how all you need is opportunity and grit to be a business owner. Mm-hmm. So we did that. So that started in 2015. It's called the Rochester Youth Culinary Experience. We worked with East High School students. They started the concept. We worked on the design. We worked with architects. We worked on menu development. They picked the whole menu. It was amazing.
Genius.
It was so amazing. I ended up pregnant again. Was surprised pregnant. Most of my babies are surprises, which is fun. I obviously like random things happening in my life. And while that was all happening, my business partners at Knox left. They came up one day and were like, so we decided this isn't for us, and we're going to be done. And
Which they can do because they don't have ownership in the building right next door.
Right. And we were like, do we want to close down? Do we want to keep it going? Fuck. I'm pregnant. I have a not-for-profit now. Like, didn't see this coming. So we ended up, one of the employees, while doing exit interviews with everyone, we were going to hire a GM, and we were like, hey, I really like your answers. Like, do you want to be the GM? And they were like, yeah. So she ended up taking the job, which we were super fortunate. And we decided to keep moving forward. And it worked out really well for a while. And then we opened RYCE in 2017. You'll notice a pattern. There's something that happens every single year since I met, well, not since I met Aaron, but since I started dating him. It has been like, every year there's something. So we opened RYCE in 2017, and that quickly went bankrupt. Yeah, that's a different podcast episode.
Yeah.
And we had to it was the first time we had to make the decision to stop something. And I had an awful delivery with my third, and I lost way too much blood, and it took me forever to get, like, I would be driving and, like, not know where I was going, and, like, be, like 10 minutes past the exit I needed, and...
That was horrible for me. Horrible time for me, too! It was horrible.
It was awful. I don't remember most of it, to be completely honest. Like, it was a fog, and it was to the point, and people that know me, I drive everywhere. I didn't drive, especially if the kids were in the car. I'd be like, no, Aaron, I can't drive. Right. And so, like, Aaron knew it was bad because I drive. Like, I like driving. It's my thing. Didn't drive for, like, 2 years unless I had to. It was really hard. So when we decided to close, I had sacrificed. She was supposed to be my last baby. My last baby, like, you don't get that.
Right.
You know, like, I tell people who have babies, like, you only get one first 3 months. Right? And I only had one maternity leave. It was the only one I had that I didn't own a business for.
Right.
And you only get that once, and you need to take it. And I didn't take it. And I was like, so if we close, I sacrificed my last baby for nothing. For what?
Right.
Plus the fact that we were going to be in debt. And just paying it back instead of trying to fix it. So we made the decision to close because now we had 3 kids to support and a business that we were still running and another business that we were still running. And if we kept losing money, we were going to lose everything else because everybody used our house and Salena's as collateral for everything else we did. Because they'd be like, well, we'll just take it out of that. So it's like if I defaulted on RYCE, they would have taken Salena's. They would have taken my house. And it was to the point where we were going to default. So we sat in the kitchen crying. It was awful. And thankfully for my husband, because I am a pessimistic optimist, and I'm like, we can fix it. We're going to fix it, and we're going to work hard, and it's going to be fine. And these kids deserve it. And it was like, I always say, Salena's is our home. So when we bought Salena's, we couldn't imagine anyone else taking it, and he was going to give it to a stranger, and like that fed into our desire to have it. Knox was our baby. It was what we ever wanted. Like, I got to build it from nothing, and like it was me. Like, I picked all that out, and I like made all that happen. And then RYCE was like supposed to be our future, and it was like how we combined everything we loved into one thing. And we could change the world, and we could show kids that there's more to life than what you know in high school.
Right.
I still see some of them every once in a while. I try to follow them on Facebook. I try to look at it not as RYCE failed, but as
It didn't fail. The community failed you.
Well, if RYCE existed during the pandemic, we would have made a fortune because suddenly everybody wanted to support minorities.
Right.
But when you have an open kitchen and a staff that's completely black and brown, a lot of people would poke their heads in and then keep going. And if they had come in, they would have realized that the food was so good.
It was incredible.
So good. So yeah, so that was supposed to be our future. And I look at it as we spent $20,000 on each one of those kids. And that's what I'm paying off. And hopefully it made some kind of difference.
It did. People still talk about it.
I've had people be like, have you heard about this program that somebody did once? And I'm like, it's happened to me twice.
Yeah,
and I was
that's
like,
me.
and like, how do you say that was me? I was like, so that was me. So yeah, so that was really depressing. That was our first big failure. And then the year later, we had another kid because we got to keep things moving.
And every year you need to do something.
Yeah. And then in 2019, I paid off my loans at the end of the year to the owner. And we were like, well, we're going to, at this point, we had come up with the Taqueria
Just
program.
in time.
And we were like, so we're going to use all that money that we paid him every month, and we're going to invest it in ourselves, and we're going to create this program, and we're going to be able to retire on it, and it's going to solve our issues that we have in the restaurant. All we have to do is make it through April.
Yeah.
I literally told my husband, if we just don't spend any money, because, January is like the worst month in Rochester for restaurants. I was like, if we just don't spend any money personally or professionally, because it all intertwines when you own a business, between now and April, the spring business will pick up and we'll be good to go.
Right.
Good to go. Just make it through April.
Yeah, we're talking April 2020.
April of 2020. And then the rest of my story is like literally one bubble of I don't remember what happened. I'm really in debt and everything's failing. And
oh, boy.
So that's how we get to 2020.
Right.
I feel like I talked a lot.
Your story's big. It's a big story. I have a list
I'm like, you have
questions.
All right, so pandemic.
Yeah. Pandemic happens. Everything goes virtual. We're both actively involved with the New York State Restaurant Association, so we're getting interviewed morning, noon, and night from the local news. Google us. It's a fun thing to watch. How
I was so happy that you were in charge in the beginning. I felt so bad for you, but I was like, oh, I'm so happy that's not me.
Yeah. Learned a lot of things about how to be comfortable in front of a camera.
But seriously, people that don't belong to associations and support groups and that, like even like BOSSY, those are the ones that were lost.
Right.
The whole pandemic, but where we had so much information that we had access to.
Yeah. And so it felt like it was kind of our duty to share that. And it was great to have that coming in from NYSRO and then being able to share that stuff with BOSSY, because even though a lot of it was restaurant driven, it pertained to so many different industries. So
yeah. And I remember Erica asking me how things were happening so different for restaurants than salons. And I was like, because
So
restaurants
lobbying.
have a lobby.
Yeah.
And salons don't. Like, do you belong to a salon group that goes to Albany and lobbies for things? And she's like, I don't think that exists. And I was like, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why you had to be more protected than a doctor to get your hair cut.
Right.
Like, because there wasn't anybody in Albany being like, no, this doesn't make sense. So honestly, all of participating in all of the things that we had going already saved my businesses. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't have made it. And it would have looked very different. So the grants we were able to get during the pandemic, especially early on, I mean, not early on, because early on we were like, we're bankrupt.
Yeah.
There goes everything.
Yep.
So where can we get loans from? So yeah, so we jumped on everything and just were super cautious to make it last as long as possible. And we were able to keep all of our staff on. We got really creative through different people that I met on how to pay them. Shared work I would have never known about if it wasn't for Tina, and she's not in the restaurant. So it was like all these things kept us going. And we've been negative every single month since March of 2020. Like negative. Not like a couple $100, like negative.
Yeah. Yeah, people don't understand that we're in more debt. I wasn't a millionaire, and I wasn't $1 million in debt. I am now.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
I paid off my debt and then became a debt millionaire.
Yeah, I know. Maybe that's our T-shirt too.
Debt
So
millionaire.
sad, debt millionaire. Oh, the things you can. I swear,
But
owning
it's less
businesses
scary
is
when
great.
you've already done it. Like I was like, well, I paid it off once, but I
Yeah.
don't have the cash flow I used to have to pay it off.
Right, but you are moving into a business model that can sustain things like pandemics. You kind of already talked about that at the beginning, but you guys had a really great idea for the Taqueria, and what you've learned throughout this pandemic has shown you really what can be successful.
And that's the one thing when we were able to reopen briefly under takeout and all that, we decided to just lean in and put the Taqueria to work. So we were like, okay, let's open a Taqueria in Salena's. Obviously it wouldn't be a 4,000 square foot restaurant, but how do you make this work and what works and what doesn't? And we were able to kind of test it, which was okay.
Right.
And it kept my husband sane, I think. And at that point in time, we had no childcare because my mom was really sick and she was our childcare. So it was literally like Aaron went to work and I stayed home and worked from home with the kids while they were all home. And we didn't want both of us exposed to the public. So he jumped into the kitchen. I jumped into learning how to work from home, which is the worst, especially when your kids are all home and they're like, we got to do school today. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? I got to try to find money.
Right.
I wish I could go back and like not have a business during that and just be able to like lean into being home with my kids. But it's just what it is. So yeah.
Hopefully you won't have to find out
No.
and have that happen again, so we don't have to relive any of that.
My second born the doctor asked what she would like most in the world, and she said for another pandemic so we could all just be stuck at home and I don't have to go in public.
Oh, love her.
I know. And I was like, I would love that too, but can we like plan it this time?
Right.
So I don't have to be so stressed out. Like your version of the pandemic is obviously very different from
Right.
mine. 'Cause I'm like, I don't want to do this ever again. And I'm still living it. Like people say it's over, but
No, we're just on a different side of it now.
yeah. I mean, I look at my payroll, for instance, when I talk about like cash flow to pay this shit off, like when I bought the business, our payroll was $7,000 a week. We have the same amount we have less staff on, I actually believe, because we're down staff in a bunch of departments because business isn't as high, but our kitchen staff is the same. It's $17,000 a week. So it's a $10,000 increase, but my sales are actually down.
Right, and you were never one to just pay minimum wage, so you were always paying a higher rate in general.
We've always gone by the living wage, and that was our first starting was, okay, what's the living wage, and then go up from there. So yeah, it's not coming back down. Food costs are up. RG&E's up.
Everything's up.
Everything's up.
So the Taqueria, less expenses. You can have one
like
kitchen to cook all of
30
that.
people that are working. And it's not even that, too. Like, I walk in on a busy day at the restaurant, and it's, okay, I have 38 employees. Maybe 20 of them are working. And then I have 50 to 100 customers, right? So, like, you're literally managing all of those people's happiness. at one time.
Right.
And in the Taqueria, there's only 6 tables, so even if we're full, it's like maybe 20 people. And it's really easy and like not as stressful to make 20 people happy than it is to make 120 people happy. And we're all like, oh, this is so peaceful.
Right. So I'm wondering, as you open more of these, is there a chance to marry the Taqueria with RYCE and have something that is, they're not coming up with the concept on their own, but they could see a business and, start it from the beginning with your model. So it takes a little bit of that out. So I didn't just come up with that.
You didn't. No, it's almost like you read my mission statement. Our long-term goal, our hope for the Taqueria is that if we can prove it to be a profitable model, is to franchise it, but to have specific guidelines in our franchising. So we want to make sure that we're franchising to minority business owners. We want to make sure that our franchise costs are manageable and that we're working in to make sure that it's going to be successful and it's not going to... I think the big M is... I think you have to have $1 million in the bank for one. It could be more than that. I don't know. But anyways, we want to make sure that it's accessible and that we can, hopefully even train up, right? So it could be owned by an employee. We want to have a training program where if you're going to be a franchisee, you're working your way through so that when we step away and you step in, like, how to do everything.
Right.
So the model is more of like a social justice model and like keeping it local and keeping it successful and making sure it's manageable for people who don't normally get the opportunity, because we still believe that opportunity can equal success if you're willing to put the grit in.
Right.
And so just figuring out those two things and how it works. So we probably end up having to like self-fund it, which is scary, but first things first, I got to finish the original model and see if it's going to work, but that's our long-term goal.
I love it.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Rob. Yes, I am the host of Father Torch. I would like to take this time to invite you in my discussions on very, very important topics of being a Black and brown father in today's society. Being a parent, the other parent, we face trials and tribulations too. We have worries, we have feelings. Here at Father Torch, we promote the advocacy of being the dad you wish you had. Join me at fathertorch.com.
All right, we're going to change gears now. As me as well, working with our husbands, people often are like, oh God, it must be so easy. You're so lucky. I think having a business partner is helpful in some ways than being a sole proprietor, but it also presents a lot of challenges. And people feel like, oh, because it's your husband, that must be so much easier than just a business partner. I love to tell them how wrong they are. Like it is wonderful for a lot of reasons, but it's so challenging. What do you find to be the most challenging working with Aaron, whom I love?
I would never want to partner with anyone but him. And after having business partners that went south, it was really hard to have other business partners because we had to come to a consensus on everything you decide to do. I was the same way with RYCE because there was a board.
Right.
And so it was like, you just need, like when you own a small business, like you just need to make decisions and go, And so with him as my partner, I trust him and we understand how each other work more than I think you would for your average business partner relationship because we're married and we know each other so well.
Right.
So that part's great. The part of like having, you can't just like if you're a sole proprietor, you could just make decisions and you don't have to like run it past everybody, even if it's your husband or just a regular business partner. Like you have to run it by. You like, we're going to charge for chips now. That's been a conversation for a very long time.
Right.
The only reason we're charging for chips now is because I have fired my husband, which I think is what you were getting to.
Well, that plus what you just said, that was a long conversation, but that's happening at work. That's happening on vacation. That's happening at the dinner table because work doesn't stop when you're married to your business partner. Yeah. It's all the time.
And when you own a restaurant, every place that you go out to eat, you're like, what are they doing with this? How is that doing that? We should do that. We shouldn't do that.
Yeah, so convenient because some great things happen during those moments.
Right.
But also a pain in the ass because it's so rare that you have a time where you're not thinking about work.
Yeah. I hate that part. I've been trying, and for the record, he is now on sabbatical.
Right.
So I'm not supposed to say I fired him anymore.
Then we have to edit that out of mine because
we don't have to
mention that.
We don't have to edit it. Mm-hmm. He's used to me saying it, I think.
Right.
He's fairly secure in himself to handle my nonsense. But he was under so much pressure and just couldn't get out of it. And as his wife, I couldn't work with him anymore. I was like, I can't be your wife, your therapist, your business partner all at once because nothing's getting done. Like, we're just at this, like, dead point. And it made it hard for our entire team to work together because now we're bringing in the stress of our relationship into every meeting and trying to, like, navigate all of that. It's one thing to navigate the emotions of your team. It's another thing to navigate the emotions of your team when they're bouncing off your husband.
Right.
And he didn't see how much he was affecting everyone around him because he had gotten so low. And as a man, like you, I feel like society says you have to work hard. And if you're not working hard, how are you supporting your family?
Right.
Right.
How are you providing?
Exactly. And he was in a position where he didn't need to be working so hard anymore, but he couldn't let go of it. So in response, he would answer all the bullshit. But I'm like, we pay other people to answer the bullshit. Like, that's where we're at now. We're supposed to be working on growing, not in answering the bullshit. But growing doesn't always look like work. Right? So there's a lot of research or thinking or writing or, you know what I mean? Like, to come up with ideas like the Taqueria program.
Right.
And then when you're growing, you're also waiting. So now we're waiting on a new building, you know? So it's like a lot of nothing. And if I'm not doing anything, what am I doing? Where I'm way more comfortable being like, sweet, I don't have anything to do today.
Right.
Because
and you'll still get stuff done. But
I understand that tomorrow I might work for 12 hours. Like, you don't know in this business. And I've learned to just grab the moments I have, right? So in response to that, I did fire him. He has decided that he has to work on what he wants to do. And I think part of that is being okay with not being busy.
Right.
Right? So he's on sabbatical. I'm running the business for the most part without him. Lately, he's been coming in and doing little things, like he's there today because they're putting in a new flat top. So he's helping with the gas line.
Right.
Yeah. So he's doing he's like, I went to work 3 times this week.
Oh, wow.
I'm so proud. But I'm also super hesitant because he's not going to be beneficial in our growth if he ends up where he was. So I'm like, pull back.
Yeah.
Pull back. Like, what
3 days is good.
Yeah. Like, what do you want your role to be? What are your responsibilities? And it's been very helpful that him stepping back, the team just, like, they have just done outstanding.
Yeah. Well, they have the opportunity to.
Yeah. Because he's not like, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. And then he's like mad that it's not so they're just doing it, and everybody has stepped up, and I really feel good about where we are, not financially, but like as a team in the restaurant. And so I'm really hoping that like spring will bring us out of the funk of COVID and at least break even. Like, that's all I want.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for that.
Break even. So working with my husband is both amazing and very, very difficult.
I agree. And that is one of the reasons I think that we work so well together, is that we understand that stuff. And one way that we're different is you are a mom and I'm not. What's that balance like? Because I have this one memory of a conversation you and I had, so I'm curious if that'll come up. And if not, I'll remind you. But how is that balance?
I want to hear the memory.
Okay.
All right.
So, well, and I think that you only had 3 kids at this time, or maybe, because I know you'd have 20 if you could. Which is amazing, and I'll help you with all of that. I just don't want them for myself. But I remember you saying, like, because there's a lot of guilt, and if you're, a mom and a business owner, whether you have partners or not, there's a lot of guilt for your time not being around, missing your first 3 months, things like that. And I remember you saying, like, I know I'm not going to be there for so many little things. So when I have chances to do big things, like trips and things like that, I have no problem pulling them out of school for things like that, because that's what they're going to remember. They're not going to remember that, I couldn't go to this event or things like that, but I'm going to make these amazing memories for them to hold on to.
Well, and when we travel, I try to travel a lot. Obviously, the past couple of years haven't been, we try to really hard to just not work. And so, yeah, like, you're always working a little bit.
Right.
So, like, I try to sneak it in, like, on the toilet in the morning and, like, checking my email and making sure, like, everything's okay. And you get certain phone calls and text messages. And my staff's always been really good when we traveled to be like, we're only going to call you if the place burns down. And then I joke and I'm like, no, because I can't do anything if it burns down. So don't call me. Let me know when I get home it burned down. Because if I'm in DC or Florida or Philly or California and you tell me the place burned down, like, what am I going to do?
Right.
So with that being said, because we work so much of our days and it's the little things, right? So it's like you're hanging out at the house and you're getting work done. My kids are doing a class and I'm sitting in the lobby getting work done. So when I can set it aside, I'm like, okay, this is the week we're going away. I generally don't do it on break week because I hate crowds and it's cheaper. And I just pull them out of school and we go, and school for the most part has been okay with it. Last year we missed all of January because of COVID and vacation. I already have vacations planned and we managed to get COVID right up to the vacation.
Oh, that's right. I remember.
So my kids didn't go to school for January.
And they're fine. They're brilliant.
They're okay. I'm not a big believer in school is the end all. I know a lot of parents are. And I don't think it's just because I was a good student. It's because I know I'm a good parent. And if my kids are struggling in school, it's not school's responsibility to help them. It's my responsibility to help them. Because if my kids are struggling in school, school's already caught the deficiency.
Right.
And I don't know if it's just my experience with education, but I believe that's the issue, right? Like, all kids learn different. So if you can't reach my kid, you're not going to be able to reach my kid, so I have to fill in that gap.
Right.
So I don't mind them missing school and that kind of stuff. And ironically, my oldest, for a long time, went through this phase where she wished we had real jobs. And then one day, her friend got whaled in the face in gym class and had to go to the nurse and had like a bloody nose and was like sobbing. And her parents couldn't come get her.
Right.
And she was like, Mom, I felt so bad because I knew if that was me, you would have dropped everything, because there's nothing that important at work that I can't lock the door and go get them.
Right.
Because if that's what it comes down to, you know, it should never be that way. But if it comes down to it, I'm going to lock the door and go. No questions asked. And I think that's when she started to shift her perspective of like, I appreciate that you can usually make it, right?
Right.
And when I do have time, like her last play that she was in, there weren't a lot of kids. And when there's not a lot of kids, there's not a lot of parents to volunteer. And there were some quick changes she was freaking out about. And I don't sign up until right before, just so I have a somewhat idea what. And every time I sign up, some shit happens.
Of course it does.
Oh my God. I was late the one day because my POS system went down. Like, my POS system hasn't gone down in forever.
Right.
Went down as I'm supposed to be going in to do a dress rehearsal.
Right.
Of course, right? But the week before, I just signed up for all the ones I could and was able to help. And she was super thankful and appreciative. And when I can do those things, I do. And when I can't, they understand that I can't.
Right.
But I try to show them that I have more flexibility.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the best things about being your own boss is that you have that flexibility. When you work for somebody else, they don't always care.
Yeah.
They're not going to let you lock the door and just go where we don't care. We don't care what anybody thinks. We'll just do what we have to do.
Unless you're the school nurse. I have another fun story. My second fell off her desk somehow and hit her head. And she got really embarrassed and was crying and went to the nurse's office. And when she gets upset, she breaks out in like hives. So the nurse calls me and I had to sign paperwork for my accountant. I'm literally walking into work. All I have to do, and like I had to do it that day, is like meet with my accountant. They're like, well, she fell and she hit her head and, you know, she's pretty red. And I'm like, so is it like red where it hit, or is it like red everywhere? Because, you know, when she gets upset, she breaks into hives and she might be fine, but like, you know, hivey, this and that. And the nurse is like very judgy. And she was like, I mean, she hit her head. And I'm like, but like, how hard did she hit her head, right? Like, so it gives me this huge guilt trip. So I'm like, shit. So I run in and I'm like, Erin, I can't sit on this meeting. Michelle, tell me where to sign. Right. I trust Erin to finish all the rest of this stuff. Apparently I have to go to school. I have a kid with like a concussion or something. I don't even know. So I just sign without even looking at anything and just tell Erin to like read through it all. Run to school. She's fine. So I'm sitting in the nurse's office and I'm like, So just so you know, honey, if you leave school with me, I have to go back into work because I have to finish what I had to leave. And this is like the only important thing I have to do all week long.
Right, of course.
So just know, like, you're not going to go home and, like, veg out. Like, you have to go to work. And the nurse is staring at me, like, evil-eyeing me. And I was like, just letting her know.
Right.
Like, she's fine. I'm looking at her. She's fine. Fast forward. Do you remember the meat sauce thing where Callan called me? She was at a play rehearsal, and her and her friend were messing around, and she wonked her head in the bathroom because they were, like, wrestling or something. And I'm on the phone, and I'm like, so how bad is it? Because I'm literally, like, volunteering right now, and I'm not that close. I'm, like, half an hour away. Like, they're like, well, I think she's okay. And I get my dad to go get her, and she's got literally a welt on the side of her head. And I'm like, I would have left for that.
Right.
That you're telling me she's okay, and in my head I'm like, is this one of those other things like where she just like bumped her head?
Like, can you just send me a video?
Yeah, can you take a picture?
Right. Jeez.
But I have the flexibility to leave for those things.
Right.
If it comes down to it, I have to. Which a lot of people don't.
Right.
Makes up for the stress.
All right, we're at our 1 hour mark.
Ooh.
Let's see. What's it like to fight your husband? We're not talking about that. So one question that you had on your list that we didn't get to when you interviewed me, which I think is important, and it'll bring us back to why we're here today, is the first time you remember being called bossy.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know, because I really wanted to talk about it.
I honestly think I've been called bossy my whole life.
That's same for me. I don't
like
remember
it
a time
literally was just one of those things.
Yeah.
Where it's funny because now if my mom or dad will like go to use the word with my kids, they like stop and like use a different word.
Oh, that's funny. We really
and
have
I think
taken
it's
it back.
because
Right.
that we are in bossy and they know that, right? So it's like now bossy is almost like a compliment. You know?
Right.
It's like, well, you're bossy, yeah. She's a leader. She knows what she wants. She's determined. She's tenacious. She's got grit.
Right.
She's bossy. All of my kids, by the way, are bossy.
Yes. Yes, they are.
Yes.
Yeah. I've always had a love-hate relationship with it, depending on who was saying it and in what time. Like, because there's some times where it'll be like, yep. and that's the only way we're going to get this science project done. So you can
oh my God,
sit down, shut the fuck up, and I can just finish this for all of us.
Oh.
Or you can sit here and call me names.
Yeah, because I am literally not getting a C because you have a stupid idea.
But that was so much in high school. I remember that. I mean, I remember it as a younger person, and then I would just shut down because my anxiety and all the things would just shut me down. But I remember in high school that was when a time where I was like, but it's literally fixing problems for you.
Right.
I'm literally helping you out here.
I would definitely say it was around high school that I started to realize that people were stupid for using that word. Because I was like, well, I'm getting shit done. In case you didn't know, apparently I was quite a bit like my third as a child. And but I was also brought up in the 80s. Like, you just did whatever you were going to do.
Right.
And nobody really stopped you. But
You're youngest. And
so like you just did it. And you just did it your way.
Yep, same. Youngest
and the
of
other
three.
kids would be, oh, no, you didn't. Oh, yes, we can. I'm doing it this way. And then they do it.
Right.
And then you just get natural consequences of, it worked, and I'm going to do it again next time.
Yeah. I remember, like, probably during Hillside Times, too, my friends started calling me Julie McCoy, who is the cruise director from Love Boat. And I was like, thinking about it the other day, there's some new TV show on, I think it's called The Love Boat or something. And I was like, oh, I should be on that. And Lucas was like, you should totally be on that because you're Julie McCoy. And I was like, that was just your nice way of calling me bossy. Because like, literally everybody would be like, we don't know what to do. Like, figure it out. Tell us what to do. And so that was like their complimentary way of calling me bossy.
Yeah.
So it's funny how many times it comes up in life.
Yeah. And now look at us.
Right? Bossy for life.
Bossy for life.
Boss wives. Oh, I feel like that has a different meaning. Yeah.
No, because that puts the emphasis on wives.
That's right.
The wife part's like an accident.
Yeah. No, I was going back to us being each other's wives.
Oh, boss wives. Okay.
Right, but I think people read it that way.
Confusing.
Yeah.
Too confusing.
Right.
You could just be my work wife.
Yep. I love it. Let me make sure I'm getting everything that I wanted to talk about. I don't know, Kyle, you're fascinating.
Thank you.
And you were raised by strong women.
It was. I have amazing women in my past.
And you were raising strong women.
Yep.
Aaron is doing a good job, too.
Very fortunate. He's an amazing girl dad. Like,
he really is.
There are just certain people that, like, you should have more girls. Like, I would have 18 of them for them to be raised by him.
Right.
They say that girls need one strong male figure in their life to make a positive difference in how they manage adulthood. It doesn't have to be their dad.
Nope.
So I always stick that with me. Just one male, positive. And it's kind of screwed up because, like, it doesn't matter how many strong women you have, but, like, it makes sense, though, to be able to navigate being strong around men, which is really hard to do. Right. And in my house, in my family, I don't know the right way to put that into words, but it was not a thing. There was never an issue of women being strong and powerful. Right. And I got to see that all the time.
Do you think any of your kids will take over a taqueria someday? I mean, not after when I interviewed them. They were all like, hard pass, not doing it, don't want any part of it.
No. I mean, maybe the younger ones. Yeah. I mean, Callan's got giant goals, and Harper wants nothing to do with it. Like, I'm pretty sure she forgets I work there. I think so. She's just like, that's that part of your life, and this is my part of your life, and I'm just going to focus on this.
Well, that's so age appropriate right now, too.
Well, and the weird thing I'm having is, I don't know if I've shared this, but my 2 older kids were raised in restaurants before COVID. Right. So I've always been able to take them in public. I take them to work. They came to work with us all the time, dining at places all the time. My 2 little ones were raised in restaurants during COVID. So we didn't bring them in unless we were closed for the most part, because I'm not going to take up a table when I only have 50% of them. Right. Right. And I didn't really want them around all those people that might be sick, like various reasons. Right. So whenever they were at work, they had the run of the place. Yeah. So they still think they do.
I mean, I think they would anyway, knowing their 2 personalities.
Right, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, no. Like, you can't do that. We're open. Like, we're busy. So, yes, it's a very different world watching them at work. And I'm like, and I have to keep reminding myself, like, they weren't raised when the restaurants were open. Right. Yeah, it's weird. But they just run.
Yeah, I do feel like they would just run anyway, because they just kind of take up space, which is wonderful. But wonderful how I can't imagine being brought up knowing that you could just take up space. And
yeah, they do too. Yeah. I love that about them.
That's awesome. Well, you're a great mom.
Thank you.
You're a great business owner. You're a great business partner.
Thank you.
And you've had a lot of successes, and you're ones that did not end as successfully as you wanted them to. Just another learning lesson. Yeah. I see you bringing it all into your future anyway. And we've talked about some things that you want to do with potential properties in the future. And I think you're going to be able to achieve all of those things. And
I hope so. Yeah. And I just look at it as, is there another job I'd rather do?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. Like, if you didn't have this, like, what would you be doing? Like, what would
go back to our old job.
Right. Same here. And I know that's not where I'm going to be doing my best. So.
Right. And I'd be so tired. Oh my gosh, I was so much younger. And what's the word? I don't even know.
Energy.
Yeah.
Patience.
Right. Last time I worked there.
we were babies.
I want to go back and I want to be a paraprofessional. Oh, yeah. I don't want to be the teacher. I want to be the person who helps the teacher and gets to, like, work with one kid. Right. And be like, oh, you need help. Let me work with you. Yeah. And then, of course, it's, like, minimum wage, but I'd have to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe when you've got 10 taquerias and you don't need to be working.
I don't want to write all the lesson plans for every subject for 6 different grade levels. Like, I just want to go in and, like, be the paraprofessional. Right. I wonder how much they're paying for paras these days.
I don't know.
We should find out.
No, we shouldn't. Because we don't need another job, and we would go. Because it's probably more than we're paying ourselves.
Do you ever Google your old students?
All the time.
I try.
Oh, yeah. I Google them. I look up from on Facebook. I don't friend them or anything because I think that's...
I almost did once.
Did you really?
Yeah, a certain gentleman that used to like to slam doors. I was super excited because I randomly found him, and it was a picture of like him and some kids, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, how cute!"
Right.
And you forget how old they've gotten because they're like adults now. They're
Yeah.
like in their 30s, some of them.
I started in 2004, so
Yeah.
they're old.
So I literally went to hit add friend, and my phone died.
Probably for the best.
And I was like, what were you thinking?
Right, I know.
I shouldn't do, but I was like, maybe I do want it. And then I was like, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to know what they're up to. I want to know that they're okay and that they made it.
Right.
Because nobody was at that program that was doing well in life.
No.
They were struggling, and I want to know how they are.
Right. I feel like I get updates every once in a while.
We only get the negative updates, I feel like. It's like my employees. Like, I want to know the positive updates.
Right.
You know, I want them to go out and do amazing things. So, yeah.
Awesome. So we've got great things coming for Bossy 2023.
Super exciting.
And if you've made it this far in our podcast, you're in season 2, and we're super excited about that and some new things coming. And I love that we are telling our stories and
Yeah.
we are telling the real raw stories, because I think that's what's helpful, and that's what people are come to us for and what they need to hear. Because like I said in our Bossy meeting last night, talking about other groups that we've gone to, and people saying, oh my God, these are all the great things about owning a business. And you guys can find that out. And if you want, call us or message us, we'll tell you all the great things. But that's not what I ever needed to hear when I was opening a business and going, what the fuck is going on? I don't know how to do any of this. I need to hear other people that acknowledge that and feel seen by that.
Right.
And I think that's so important. I think it's one of my favorite things.
I think as business owners, we already know the great things about it because that's why we do it.
Right.
It's and a lot of people look at it that like, oh, it's a bitch fest or it's fencing and this and that. But it's like, well, I already know the good parts.
Right.
This is, and then maybe you're having a great day. So you don't have to go in and be in a bad mood. You can go in a great mood and share that stuff. But not everybody's in that place that day. And supporting each other is important.
Right.
And building that community is important.
And that's what we've done for almost 9 years.
I know. It feels like yesterday.
Yeah. We had a 7-year party, and I know.
It feels like it was so long ago.
Right, I know. But I think that...
It's my whole family calling.
I know. I keep looking back at my phone.
Like, did something happen? Everyone's calling me right now. Sorry.
No, it's okay. But I feel like maybe a 9-year party we should start.
10. Let's just go to 10. We already have a lot on the books this year.
Yeah,
and we're doing it all ourselves again.
That's true. Yeah, 10-year party.
Okay.
So anybody that's listening, hold us accountable. We're going to have a 10-year party.
10-year.
So fly in, drive in, come on down wherever you're coming from and join us at our 10-year party.
Yeah, and if you have any other questions, if you want to hear other stories, maybe I'll write a book about all the employees I've had over the years.
We have so many books that we need to write.
I know.
Yeah, I have a notes page where it's just like stuff. And I feel like, right, and when I text you something that I think should be in the book, I'm like, for the book, so I can someday just search for the book. And then all of those texts will come up, and I'm basically building content. This is going to be a no-brainer. It's going to take days to put it together.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And listening to my story.
It's an important story. Yeah. There's a lot more
to it. If you want to know more about any of it, you can reach out at any time. I don't want this podcast to go for 2 hours. So I'll just leave it at the Cliff Notes version.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Join us next time.
Season 2. We're just going to keep it real.
Yep.
Check us out online at Bossy ROC on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can check out our podcast that you're already listening to on your favorite channels. And on our website, bossyroc.com, we have a blog where we pull out some of the stuff we've talked about with different people. And
we also have a Facebook and Instagram page for Getting Real with Bossy, so check that out. It's brand new, so please like it and share it because we just put it together like 2 nights ago. But that'll be another place where we can talk more about the people that we're interviewing and share pictures and stuff like that. So if you're only listening and not watching, you can be able to see who we're bringing in. All right.
Be bold.
Be brave.
Be the boss.
Girl, where have you been? I haven't seen you at work in a while.
Girl, I quit and started my own business.
Really? That's amazing. How did you do it?
Well, I've been listening to this Beauty Boss Millionaire podcast, and it really helped me change my mindset from an employee to a CEO.
All that from a podcast?
Yes, the Beauty Boss Millionaire walks you through the process of starting a business and making your first million.
I need that in my life. I need someone to help me.
Just go to beautybossmillionaire.com or pull it up on your favorite podcast app. It's time to boss up.